you're fine. I would never, ever step foot in a wedding wearing white. Unless the bride literally asks.
Hey everyone. Today we're diving into a really exciting video where we're buying the exact same product from Temu, Amazon, and Etsy. I call this the sequel because I did a very similar experiment a few years ago, buying the same item from Shein, Temu, and Wish. As you probably know, I'm not a huge fan of Shein, Temu, or Wish. I get why people like them, tons of products at super affordable prices, but I don't love their business practices. The more I learn, the less I like. That first video was made to see the actual differences between the brands since they're so similar, and it ended up being one of the top 10 most successful videos I've made in my 12 years of creating content. Clearly, you guys were interested too. In that video, we learned a lot about how the brands differ in quality and price. And in the comments, many of you suggested I do it again, but include other brands like Amazon and Etsy. Brands that seem more trustworthy, but might be doing the exact same things. I sat on that idea for over 2 years, and now here I am finally doing it. Buying the exact same products from different brands. The sequel. Better late than never. My mission is the same as it was back in 2023, to figure out what the real differences are. Are the products the same when they arrive, or are they just using stolen photos? How do the prices compare? And can I even figure out who stole the photos first? Shopping on these sites can be tricky because pictures are often stolen from small businesses. And even when the photos aren't stolen, the ideas often are. This is why including Etsy is so interesting. Etsy was originally supposed to be a platform for small businesses to sell their products, but over time it seems to have shifted toward bigger manufacturers selling items disguised as small businesses. Temu is pretty straightforward. Affordable pricing, real products, decent quality considering the price, and a legitimate business. Amazon is similar, with countless sellers ranging from small businesses to massive companies, and some of the same products sold on Temu probably appear on Amazon too. In this video, we'll use Temu as our control since we know what to expect. Affordable, real products that will actually arrive. From there, we'll compare how Amazon and Etsy match up, looking at quality, price, and originality. Hey everyone! Welcome back to another absolutely ridiculous, slightly obsessive, and completely unnecessary deep dive into the world of online shopping. Today, we're doing something that I think a lot of you are going to find super interesting, or at least mildly entertaining. And that is buying the exact same product from Temu, Amazon, and Etsy. Yes, the sequel is finally here. I know some of you have been waiting for years for this, and honestly, so have I. It's been over 2 years since I first did this experiment with Shein, Temu, and Wish, and back then, we learned a lot about how these similar platforms can vary wildly in price, quality, and just general weirdness. If you missed that first video, the gist was simple. I wanted to see if the products that look identical online actually match up when they arrive. And spoiler alert, they often don't. Sometimes the photos are stolen, sometimes the product quality is wildly different, and sometimes the differences are subtle enough that you don't even notice unless you're comparing side by side. That video ended up being one of the top 10 most successful videos I've ever made in my 12-year career. Which is honestly insane because I didn't think anyone would care that much about comparing cheap random products online. But clearly you guys care. And from the comments on that video, the message was loud and clear. Do it again, but include Amazon and Etsy. Don't just stick to the obviously questionable sites like Shein or Temu. And that's exactly what we're doing today. Now, before we dive in, I have to get this out of the way. Temu has probably reached out to me over 100 times for sponsorships. I've never accepted any of them. Not once. Ever. I always label these videos as unsponsored because I want you guys to know that what I'm saying is genuinely my opinion. Yet somehow, some people in the comments still think parts of it are sponsored. Nope. Absolutely not. If I ever do a sponsored video, you'll know. Pinky promise. Alright, now that my mini rant is over, let's get into it. First up, Temu. We're going to start with something personal. A crochet strawberry planter. On Temu, it's described as a cute handcrafted crochet fruit and flower basket, car charm, rearview mirror hanging decor, and plant ornament for vehicle interiors. It's priced at $340 Canadian, which honestly is just mind-boggling. I mean, crochet is handmade. There's no machine that can mimic those little loops and stitches perfectly. So $340? My brain can't even compute that. I've talked about this in other videos. Labor standards, minimum wage, and production costs vary by country, but even so, it's a shockingly low price. Now let's look at Amazon. The exact same product shows up there with what looks like the same photo, just a slightly different saturation. It's listed as a crochet potted plant car accessory for $16.99. If it's the same manufacturer as the Temu one, the seller is making an absolutely insane profit margin. And just to clarify, it's not Amazon itself making all the profit. It's usually an individual seller on the Amazon marketplace. The same goes for Temu. These platforms are marketplaces with individual sellers, so sometimes the same seller is on multiple platforms with wildly different pricing. Dropshipping is a confusing, tangled web, and honestly, sometimes I feel like I need a PhD just to understand it. Then we have Etsy. Etsy is the one that really makes me pause, because the platform was originally meant for small businesses to sell handmade or unique products. On Etsy, the same crochet design is listed as a strawberry hanging plant or car diffuser hanger for $27. 43. This one feels much more like a genuine small business item. And visually, it's completely different from the other two, even though it's clearly inspired by the same concept. While Temu's version is simple and cheap, and Amazon's is brighter and slightly more polished, the Etsy one looks carefully crafted, structured, and thoughtful. Interestingly, all three have 4 strawberries hanging down, round bases in similar proportions, but the colors are different. And color discrepancies are something you see a lot when the same manufacturer runs out of certain materials, like a particular yarn, and swaps in another. Structurally, the Etsy piece holds up better too. If it were hanging in a car, it would sit upright, whereas the others tend to topple or lean. So even though the design idea is the same, the execution varies. Next, let's talk cookie clips. On Temu, a set of 6 clips costs $3.62 and has hundreds of reviews. Cute little cookies for your hair? Who wouldn't want that, honestly? Amazon sells a similar set of 6 clips for $11.89. And Etsy? Well, Etsy sells each individual cookie clip for $6.66 with options for 6 different cookie designs. Now, I don't know if the Etsy seller handmade these or just bought bulk versions and is reselling them, but the similarity is uncanny. The clips have slightly different clasp colors, but the shape, size, and general design are practically identical. I've chosen not to show the Etsy seller's name because, first of all, I'm not 100% sure about the source, and second, I don't want to unfairly drive negativity toward a small business. The goal here isn't to call anyone out. It's to raise awareness that Etsy doesn't automatically mean handmade or small batch. Sometimes the products may come from the same manufacturers as Temu or Amazon, but the pricing is massively different. That's why it's important to shop carefully and know what you're paying for. Even when you compare Temu and Amazon, the clips are slightly different in clasp color. The Temu clip has a gold clasp, Amazon's is silver, and Etsy's is a brassy gold. The cookies themselves are slightly different shades too. But the dots, the shapes, the general look, there's almost no way to tell they aren't from the same manufacturer. It's really fascinating to see how a product can traverse 3 platforms, end up priced 3 different ways, and still look almost identical. And then there's clothing, because you can't really do a video like this without it. I found a heart gingham cardigan that I loved. On Temu, it was $14. On Amazon, the same piece was $25.99 with a 3.9 star rating. Not terrible, but not amazing either. Unfortunately, I couldn't find this top on Etsy, so we're only comparing Temu and Amazon. Straight away, they look completely different. The color, the texture, and the fit all vary. Some clothing on these marketplaces exists only because it can, not because anyone actually needs it. And honestly, I think we can all agree that certain items might just be overhyped or unnecessary. Now let's take a deeper look at what all of this means. First, Temu is predictable. You know what you're getting and it's cheap. Quality varies, but it's generally fine for the price. Amazon is a mixed bag. Some sellers are great, some aren't, and pricing can be all over the place even for identical items. Etsy feels like the wild card. You might think you're supporting a small business, but sometimes the product comes from a large-scale manufacturer or is resold after being bought in bulk. That's not inherently bad, it just changes the value proposition. One of the most fascinating things about this whole experiment is seeing the effect of perceived value. Temu is cheap, Amazon is moderately priced, and Etsy charges a premium. And yet, visually and functionally, many items are practically the same. It makes you question why we pay more and how much of it is actually for quality versus branding, or the assumption that Etsy equals handmade. Shipping, packaging, and presentation also play a big role. Temu's packaging is basic. Amazon varies depending on the seller. and Etsy usually packages products carefully with branding or little touches that make it feel special. This is part of the experience, and part of the reason people are willing to pay more. But from a purely functional standpoint, a $3 40 crochet strawberry is still going to do the same job as a $27 43 version, at least most of the time. And the deeper you dig, the more confusing dropshipping and marketplaces get. A single seller could be operating on Temu, Amazon, and Etsy, sourcing from the same manufacturer, but pricing differently on each platform. Photos might be stolen or altered, color discrepancies happen, and the same product might arrive slightly different every time depending on materials and quality control. The whole thing is like a weird online economy puzzle that's half logic, half chaos, and half mystery. Even with small items like cookie clips, the discrepancies are subtle. Temu has gold clasps, Amazon has silver, Etsy has brassy gold. Cookies are slightly different shades. Packaging is different, presentation varies, and yet fundamentally they're all the same idea executed in almost identical ways. It's both fascinating and maddening to see how pricing, presentation, and marketplace affect perceived value so dramatically. I've also started thinking about repeat orders. If I buy the same Temu cookie clips 5 times, would they all come with gold clasps? Silver? Orange? Who knows? That's part of the weird thrill of buying from these marketplaces. You never know exactly what you're going to get. And it makes for some genuinely interesting experiments. Now let's talk ethics. A lot of people assume that buying from Etsy means supporting small businesses. Sometimes that's true. Other times, the product is mass manufactured or resold from a larger source. That doesn't make it illegal or inherently wrong, but it does mean that consumers need to be savvy. You can't just assume that the handmade label always means handmade, and you can't assume that higher prices always mean higher quality. It also raises questions about labor standards and production. A $3 $40 crochet strawberry seems impossible, and yet it exists. Somewhere, someone made it, and it probably didn't involve minimum wage labor as we think of it. This isn't unique to Temu. It happens across global supply chains. The difference is that when you pay $27 43s on Etsy, you're presumably compensating for labor, quality control, and care. Whether or not that's true depends entirely on the seller, the manufacturer, and how the product was made. Shipping times also matter. Temu tends to be slower, Amazon depends on the seller and fulfillment method, and Etsy varies wildly depending on whether it's handmade or drop-shipped. Packaging and unboxing experiences also play into perceived value, which is why some people prefer Etsy despite the higher cost. Ultimately, what we're seeing is a fascinating glimpse into how online marketplaces work, how products are priced, and how consumers perceive value. It's also a reminder to shop smart, compare products across multiple platforms, and be aware that a higher price doesn't always mean higher quality, or that a low price doesn't always mean bad quality. And let's be honest, a lot of this is just plain fun. Watching the same product appear across 3 platforms, priced 3 different ways, with subtle differences and quirks, is oddly satisfying. It's like a mix between detective work and a bizarre online treasure hunt. And that's why I do these videos, to explore the weird corners of online shopping, to have fun, and hopefully to give you a little insight before you click buy. So to recap, the Temu crochet strawberry planter is tiny, cheap, and somewhat questionable in labor ethics. The Amazon version is moderately priced with a more polished appearance. The Etsy version feels genuine, small business-oriented, and is priced accordingly. The cookie clips tell a similar story. Same basic product, different colors, different pricing, and slightly different packaging. And clothing? Temu is cheap, Amazon is pricier, Etsy is hit or miss, and all 3 have their quirks. Shopping online is a wild, unpredictable adventure. Every product has a story, every platform has its own logic, and every price point tells a slightly different tale about manufacturing, branding, and perception. And honestly, that's what makes this useless mission so fun. Even if we don't solve the mysteries of the online marketplace, we get to explore, experiment, and maybe learn a little bit about where our money goes and what we're actually paying for. Hey everyone! Welcome back to another absolutely ridiculous, slightly obsessive, and completely unnecessary deep dive into the weird world of online shopping. Today we are doing something I think a lot of you are going to find highly entertaining, or maybe mildly infuriating, depending on how much you love your money, and that is taking a super close look at some of the weirdest, most confusing, and sometimes painfully overpriced products on Temu, Amazon, and Etsy. Specifically, we're diving deep into 3 products that I personally bought to test out side by side. the heart gingham cardigan, some lemon earrings, and a duck lamp. Yes, a duck lamp. And yes, this is going to get weird, but bear with me because this is a classic case of the same product existing in 3 wildly different worlds. The cheap, the mid-range, and the Etsy, premium but wait what? Experience. So, let's start with the heart gingham cardigan, because this one personally drove me slightly insane, in the best way possible for a video. Right off the bat, when I got these in the mail, I knew we were looking at a case of clearly inspired by the same photo. Both the Temu and Amazon versions had the little heart pocket, their gingham, and they both have the lace-up detail near the neckline. But as soon as you touch the fabric, oh my goodness, the fabrics feel so bad. Like, genuinely, what is this material? And of course, I checked, and yes, 100% polyester. Obviously, why would we use anything else? Polyester for life, apparently. Scratchy, synthetic, and not exactly breathable, but hey, it's cheap and colorful, so you get what you pay for. Now, let's talk about the tags. I thought maybe there would be some subtle difference that might clue me in about who made these, but as I held them up side by side, I was struck by how similar they were. You know that moment when you think, this looks exactly the same, but then you notice a tiny variation? That's exactly what happened. One tag said large, one tag didn't, but otherwise same vibe. Price-wise, we're looking at $14 for Temu and $25 for Amazon. And I'm not even joking when I say this. Do not waste $14 or $25 on either of these. You could literally go to a thrift store, find a better fabric, better color, better fit, and probably save a few bucks in the process. I used to do a series on my channel, coming back soon, so stay tuned, where we take these affordable items and try to make better versions for even less money. And honestly, this cardigan is a perfect candidate for that kind of experiment. So let's put them on and see what happens. First up, the Temu cardigan. I tried to pair it with something basic, because honestly, you want the cardigan to be the star, not your entire outfit. This was technically a 1 size, but on the tag it said large. So it's a little oversized on me, which, okay, I get it. Oversized can be cute. The fabric feels like a scratchy linen wrapped in polyester. It's not soft, it's not luxurious, but it's also not unwearable. You could survive a few hours wearing this. The heart pocket? Super cute. Puffy sleeves? Check. Dropped shoulders? Double check. It's kind of charming if you ignore the fabric and the fact that it's clearly a low-budget recreation of something that exists somewhere else. Now, moving on to the Amazon version, which cost $25. I actually shopped this in a small size, so it fits more tightly and a little shorter than the Temu one. And I'll admit, the silhouette is nice. The little heart pocket is present, the puffy sleeves are cute, and the shape is fine. But the gingham color? Totally off. Wrong shades. It's like they tried to copy the original aesthetic but didn't bother matching the colors properly. Also, the tag and some minor details differ, which means someone probably recreated this, but not with any attention to detail. And the price? $25. For polyester that feels like it was literally spun out of a factory in under 5 minutes? Nope, save your money, folks. Seriously, go thrift shopping for 30 minutes, and you will find something better, maybe even made of cotton. At this point, I have to pause and reflect, because this is a perfect microcosm of the whole Temu versus Amazon versus Etsy world. Temu is cheap and predictable. Amazon is moderately priced, with some attempt at presentation and fit, but sometimes still off in color, quality, or sizing. Etsy, when it comes to clothing, often feels like the wild card. You could be paying a premium for something handmade and gorgeous, or you could be paying for the exact same product in bulk and just getting the Etsy markup. And this is exactly why I do these videos. To explore, experiment, and highlight the absurdity of online shopping. Now that we've tortured ourselves with cardigans, let's move on to jewelry, specifically the lemon earrings, because this one is personal. I used to make jewelry myself, bracelets, necklaces, little trinkets, and sell them at farmers markets. So whenever I see jewelry online, my brain immediately goes into detective mode. I want to know, small business or dropshipper? Handmade or mass-produced? Ethical production, or just cheap plastic pretending to be artisanal? Let's start with Temu. These lemon earrings were $2.26 with 44 reviews. I mean, obviously cute, small, lightweight, and adorable. But $2.26? That's suspiciously low. Then we have Amazon, selling a very similar pair for $16.99. If it's the same manufacturer, that's a huge markup, like 600% or something ridiculous like that. And the photos on Amazon and Temu? Practically identical, which makes me question originality and manufacturing sources. Finally, Etsy. These earrings are $24.65, which is almost 10 times the price of Temu. Now, here's where it gets interesting. The Etsy pair shows subtle differences. The lemon has more texture, the flower is slightly different, and the overall vibe feels more artisanal. I'm rooting for Etsy here. I want to believe this is a small business making these earrings by hand, and not just buying bulk Temu or Amazon versions to resell. Unboxing these earrings was a fun little moment. Temu came with a small stopper on the back. Amazon? No stopper. Etsy? Unique flower pattern, textured lemon, careful packaging. Side by side, they're all cute, but the differences are subtle. And yet, the prices tell a wildly different story. Temu, $2.26. Amazon, $16.99. Etsy, $24.65. From a consumer perspective, it's easy to assume Etsy, all higher quality, handmade. And sometimes that's true, but sometimes it's just perception and branding. And then, the duck lamp. This is the product that really made me question my sanity. I don't even want to admit that I now have 3 of them, but here we are. On Temu, it's $10. 22s. Cute, classic, little duck nightlight. You buy it for your kid, they love it for 5 minutes, then it breaks. Classic scenario. Minutes, then it breaks. Classic scenario. On Amazon, it's $21, double the price, slightly more polished packaging. And Etsy, $41. Again, is this a small business product handmade from scratch? Probably not. My suspicion, bought in bulk, possibly from Alibaba or a similar supplier, and then resold at a premium under the Etsy brand. Now let's talk details. Boxes differ slightly. Temu's box is basic, Amazon's box is more polished. Etsy's box tries to look artisanal, but the artwork and style are clearly inspired by the same product. The lamp itself? Temu's off-white, Amazon's pure white, Etsy's slightly colored. Switches and buttons have minor differences. Small cosmetic variations, but fundamentally, it's the same lamp. And the pricing? Quadruple from Temu to Etsy, with little difference in function. The takeaway here is clear. Online marketplaces operate on perception, branding, and presentation as much as on actual product quality. Temu is cheap and straightforward. Amazon is mid-range, slightly more polished with moderate quality. Etsy is premium, sometimes handcrafted, sometimes just bulk resold, with a heavy emphasis on branding and presentation. All right, let's pick up where we left off. We've got these little duck lamps in front of us, all 3 of them. Temu, Amazon, and Etsy. The suspense is real. First glance, honestly, they look almost identical. The build seems similar. The shape, the size, even the feet. They all line up in a way that makes me go, okay, same manufacturer maybe? But then you look closer, and there are subtle differences. The switches aren't identical. The Etsy one has a switch that's slightly different from the Temu and Amazon ones. The Amazon one's switch feels a bit more solid, a little stiffer when you press it. The Temu one? Well, it's a bit floppy, kind of cheap feeling, like it might give out in a month if you use it too much. And the Etsy one? Oh boy, this one feels like it might survive a hurricane. I'm not even joking. That's the first clue that maybe these aren't all coming from the exact same warehouse. Or maybe the Etsy seller sourced it from a higher-end supplier. Or maybe they just added a slightly better switch. Who knows? So now comes the fun part, testing them. I have them set up carefully so I don't mix them up, because if I did, this whole experiment would be ruined. Half the battle is buying these things, but the other half? Making sure they actually function. Because what's the point if it's just a pretty lamp that doesn't light up? That's a waste of money and, frankly, my sanity. We'll start with Temu. Plug it in, cross your fingers. Moment of truth. Oh wow, it actually works. Can we pause for a second and just appreciate that? I honestly expected some kind of total failure. Maybe it won't turn on, maybe it will explode, who knows with these ultra-affordable sites sometimes. But nope, it's lighting up beautifully. Maybe not the brightest, but honestly, for $10. 22? That's wild. And now I'm thinking, maybe my expectations are just too low, because this is genuinely impressive. Next up, Amazon. Plug it in. The cord feels slightly different, stiffer. The bottom's a little off compared to Temu. But hey, it works. And honestly, it looks a little brighter, a little more professional, like they maybe didn't skimp on the bulb or the internal wiring. And again, this is $21, double the Temu price. So what's the extra 10 actually buying us? Is it just better packaging? Slightly more solid materials? Or is Amazon simply marking it up because, well, Amazon? Finally, Etsy. The most expensive little chicken of the group. Plug it in and oh my goodness, wow, whoa, it changes colors. Did you see that? Red, green, blue, purple. A rainbow in my living room. Honestly, I did not expect this at all. I thought maybe it would be identical to Amazon's version, just a few dollars more expensive because handmade or small business premium. But this is a whole different level. The colors are vibrant. The light distribution is actually even. I'm kind of impressed here. Okay, yes, $41 is steep for a small duck lamp, but I mean, look at it. Rainbow. It's like a tiny disco in my living room. Now I know what you're thinking. Say fear. Buying 3 lamps is wasteful. And yes, you're right. I always feel bad about doing this. But for the sake of the video, this is crucial. And to offset it a little, I'm going to give all of these away to you guys. I'll be compiling them into a fun little giveaway, so check the Google form down below if you want a chance to snag one. That way, it's not just sitting in my apartment collecting dust. Okay, moving on, we have the mushroom glass vases. 5-piece sets, vintage-inspired, colorful, very aesthetically pleasing. First, let's look at Temu. 5 vases, $7. Honestly, that's a steal for a set of 5. They look cute, charming, but you know me, I'm suspicious of anything vintage from a mass market site. Most likely, vintage-inspired, not actual antiques. Amazon's set is $38 for 6 pieces. Wait, slightly more vases, but more than double the price. Okay, that's a significant jump. Is it worth it? I'll find out. And then Etsy. Oh boy, Etsy is $43 and they're advertising these as actual 1960s vintage mushrooms. Now I'm skeptical. I've seen too much online to just take that at face value. And what's curious, if these were truly vintage, would they really have multiples of the same exact color and design? Probably not, so let's inspect. The vases all look slightly different. That's promising, maybe. Temu's are cute, uniform, maybe mass-produced. Amazon's are similar but slightly larger or smaller in areas. Subtle differences in glass thickness, a hint of uniqueness. Etsy's look more delicate, maybe hand-blown, maybe just designed to look antique. The tops have varying hole sizes, the caps are slightly different, the dots aren't identical. I can almost see the artisanal influence, or maybe it's just clever mass production trying to mimic uniqueness. Either way, fascinating. And price-wise, Temu $17, Amazon $38, Etsy $43. Big jump, but there's more of an aura of authenticity here. Now onto clothing. First up, that heart gingham cardigan we discussed earlier. I tried them both on, Temu and Amazon, since I couldn't find Etsy. Both were polyester, scratchy, cheap feeling, but the Amazon one was a bit better in terms of fit. Still, $25 for Amazon versus $14 for Temu? Honestly, neither was worth it. I feel like I could sew a better one for less, maybe even out of fabric I already have at home. The fit, the gingham, the lace-up, it's also slightly off from the original photo that I genuinely think the images are stolen or at least heavily inspired by some other original creator. But okay, let's move on. Jewelry. I picked these lemon earrings because I genuinely love handmade jewelry and supporting small businesses. Temu $2.26, Amazon $16.999, Etsy $24.65, first glance. Temu and Amazon are almost identical. Like, suspiciously identical. The lemon shape, the smoothness, the flower design, it's uncanny. Etsy's version has subtle differences. More texture, a slightly different flower design. I want to believe this is a true small business creation. Fingers crossed, Etsy. Price jump from $2.26 to $16.99? That's a massive markup, potentially justified if Etsy is actually handcrafting these versus mass-produced. I really hope that's the case. Now, the lamp test already blew my mind. The rainbow effect on the Etsy duck lamp was something else. All 3 work, yes, but there's a significant difference in quality, brightness, and design details. It really illustrates the point. Just because you see the same item across different platforms doesn't mean you're getting the same product, quality, or ethical production standards. Moving to the vases again, this is a fascinating one. The slight differences in glass thickness, cap size, hole diameter, it's enough to suggest either careful quality control or actual artisan work on Etsy. Temu and Amazon? More mass market vibes, less character, but perfectly functional and cute. And pricing, again, shows a massive spectrum. $17 versus $38 versus $43. Now, onto the dress. $31 Temu versus $11.49 at Amazon? Wait, that's insane. Okay, sorry, that might have been a typo.